Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are tuning into us from, and welcome to the final episode of Season 1 of The Mindset Show. I am here with Justin Sua and Lauren Johnson, fired up to get things going. We are happy that you've been along this ride with us, and we're ready to get it going with this final group of questions. But obviously, like every episode, before we start, we must do our tabletop question. So today, considering it's the weekend, and for those of our younger listeners, on the weekends, there used to be this thing called Saturday and Sunday cartoons on TV. So my question to Justin and Lauren is, if you could be a cartoon character for a week, who would you be? Justin, why don't you go ahead, Justin? Okay. Why don't you kick us off?
Cartoon character for a week, I'd probably want to be Leonardo, the Ninja Turtle. And so I just loved the swords. I loved the Ninja Turtles. I love the fact that they can eat pizza, that they can be ninjas, that they can fight the bad guys. I'm definitely going with Leonardo Ninja Turtles.
Love it. Lauren, what do you got?
That's so good. I'm like, my brain is just like spinning right now, like trying to remember like all the cartoons. Can you go?
I'll happily go. Listen, I'm gonna throw
organize my brain.
Again, I'm hoping that people are tracking this, but I would totally be Maggie Simpson, the baby from The Simpsons, mostly because I'm fascinated by like her character in the sense that I obviously no Simpsons in the characters ever actually grow up, but like the amount of stuff that Maggie's seen as a baby, and for anyone who's like super into The Simpsons, like she does some absolutely bananas and wild things. So I just kind of love it. Like she's like a crazy baby, and I don't know, maybe I'm primed because my wife and I were having a baby in 3 weeks, and that's why I'm digging Maggie Simpson. But I'm going with Maggie Simpson, the baby.
That's awesome.
All right, I like it. So I think I would be somebody from the Wild Thornberrys. And because it's like all about adventure and trying new things, and so for me, I would say that, and because I can't think of anything else. So,
all right, listen, see everyone, this is how it's authentic with the tabletop questions that nobody knows because no time to prepare for our partners in crime here. So, There we go. I'm really excited about today's episode. I think we've got sort of a unique set of questions, some of them revolving around specifically teams. So we sort of think about that idea of performance within how we help our teams as a mental performance coach or as somebody else. And so the first question is, how can I find my team's North Star and move with purpose, specifically during uncertainty and constantly changing times? Justin, long-winded question there, but what are you thinking about helping a team find their North Star?
So first of all, just the term North Star really resonated with me, and it's something that I think you and I, Brian, have spoken about, did something about on this. So the North Star concept, where it comes from. So Voyagers, way back in the days when they would traverse the vast bodies of water, there's no map. It's crazy to think, just side comment, my wife and I were talking the other day, like, how did we do it without Google Maps, like back in the days? Like that, it blows my mind. But there are people who use stars and constellations even before technology. And the North Star concept comes from it's the furthest star on the ladle of this the small Big Dipper, Little Dipper, on a Little Dipper, and it's Polaris. And basically, it was known for its perceived fixed state in the sky. It's like, okay, this is north. No matter where you are, where you're going, the North Star, if you just look up, you can say, okay, we're headed in the right direction. And I think for a team to discover their North Star, I think it starts with the leader, right? It starts with, where's the leader going? Because if it's a mist, fog to the leader, it's going to be a mist to the followers. And can I share a story really quick about this?
Always.
Okay. So I'll never forget. So this is my time with Cleveland Browns, and our head coach comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, is there any observations that you have? Is there anything that I could do better?" And you always love that as a question when you're a mental performance coach from the manager, the head coach, whoever it may be. And I said, "Yeah, I'm not sure that your vision or your focus is as clear to the coaches as it is to you." And he goes, "How do you know that?" So it just doesn't seem like it from what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing mixed messages. And he goes, well, how do we find out? And I said, well, something that you can do is take index cards at the next staff meeting, hand index cards to everybody on the staff, and tell everyone to write down what is the purpose of the season? What's the vision? And I said, if every index card does not come back with the exact same word or phrase, then you know they're getting mixed signals. And he goes and he hands them out. He gets them back, goes in his office, and he starts to read them. They were all over the board. There were some one words, some were phrases, some were paragraphs. And that's when he realized that his North Star, his message, was not as clear as he thought it was. And so that's one thing. Maybe if you're a leader of an organization or a coach, you want to get the team on board, make sure you're crystal clear of what you want, and then being able to articulate it and share it as often as you can.
Well, I mean, I love the idea of obviously like the leader helping to facilitate that, but also recognizing that it's everyone that's sort of underneath that leader that is oftentimes helping to like move in the same direction, which is obviously your story talked about with the North Star. Lauren, what are you thinking?
Well, I love this because, there's a story that popped in my head that Jocko Willink actually talks about in his book Extreme Ownership. And he talks about there was this one day and they were all going out for this mission. And he said up until this mission, they were killing it. Like they were crushing every mission. It was like they with half the amount of time and just doing very, very well. And so he said, essentially what they started to do after every mission is they started to cut down the amount of supplies because they didn't need all of them and it lightened the load. And so they were able to complete them quicker. And so then he says, one day we're about to get ready for this mission. And he goes, and I go up to one of my guys and I like smack him on the back and I go like, let's get some. And he says, and when I do that, I notice his back plate isn't there. And he even grabbed his shirt just to make sure. And he asked him, he's like, hey man, why aren't you wearing your back plate? He goes, well, because I'm trying to, it lightens the load and I can move faster. And he goes, and let's be real, like I'm never going to be running away from the enemy. So it won't matter. And he goes, immediately, he knew that he did something wrong as a leader. That he didn't explain the purpose behind wearing your back plate. And so he said, just before the mission started, he had everybody raise their hand. And he said, if you're not wearing a back plate, raise your hand. And he goes, it wasn't a ton, but there was about 5 guys. And he goes, one is one too many. And so he said, if you don't have a back plate on, go get it on. And so they all left and they come back. And he then one by one asked, why didn't you have one? And again, one guy goes, because my back's never going to be facing the enemy. And then he asks them, he says, will you always know where the enemy is? Are you for sure certain that you will always know where the enemy is? And they kind of shook their head, no. And he said, so what you're telling me is that if you're not wearing your back plate and the enemy is coming from the backside and you don't see it coming, that means that there's one casualty. And he goes, and what happens when we have a casualty? We have 2 to 3 more guys now having to pick you up. So now you just took out 2 to 3 more of your teammates. And now you're putting us in a compromised position. And so he said, I understand that you guys want to do these faster, but we can't reduce our quality. And he said, and that's my fault for not making that clear. From now on, nobody ever goes into a mission without their backplate. And so the point of it is that if we don't have that purpose, it's hard for the team to then follow that purpose and to buy into that vision, really, really similar to what you're saying, Justin. And so for me, I just think that having that central purpose is really important. And I think part of it too is helping people to understand what responsibility they have within it. Because every position and every role plays, or adds something to this overall vision and to this overall purpose. And so that's the story that like popped in my head. But I mean, it just shows how important it is for your team to understand not just what you need to do, but why you need to do it.
Awesome. It's great. I mean, I just love you guys are both sort of capturing this idea of obviously there's such a load on the leader to make sure that it's clear, that it's understandable, that the expectations are maintained, and that everyone sort of knows what we're doing. And again, like I keep sort of going back to this idea of like, it's certainly that leader's part, but again, the leader's job is to get the entire group moving in one direction. I don't know if it was one of the two of you or if it was somebody else, but it was just like, I think somebody said like one time that it like doesn't matter if your team is moving in the wrong direction as long as they're moving together. And I know that sounds like so counterintuitive to like high performance, but it's like sometimes the hardest thing is just to get the team, the group of people that you are working with, to move in the same direction. And I think that, like what we're explaining here is really that. It's like, how can we align on something to get it so that we're all feeling comfortable, excited, motivated to want to go in one spot? And I think we've all been in environments, both as mental performance coaches and other things that we've all done, where you don't feel like that. Like you find yourself questioning, you find yourself asking like, is this right? Or like the idea of just like trying to please multiple people, and it just doesn't, this is like such a like wrong way to explain. It just feels just like like yucky, like I don't like that, right? And I think when you experience those visceral responses, that kind of shows you that maybe something's not lined up, and maybe as the employee, it's something that you can do to ask for more clarity or to ask for understanding. And Justin, I mean, I think like what you said is just phenomenal with how you can do that as a leader, but even as the employees, maybe there's some responsibility on our end too, you know?
Yeah, no, I like what both of you are saying. And what I hope someone doesn't do is when they watch this and then listen to Lauren's great story and listen to the story with the coach, with the Browns, is that it's messy. It's really, there's no cookie cutter answers, right? There's no, here are 3 steps to find the North Star for your team. It's like you said, like both of you said, it's collaboration, it's asking, it's iterating, it's observational, it's sloppy, it's messing. And sometimes, how do you know what your North Star is? How do you know when to change it? How do you know when it's getting stale, when you need to move it? And so just at least pausing to consider and accepting the fact that, hey, it's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. It's not so cookie cutter. And you'll find out, if you're a leader, what works best for you and your organization and your team. If you just pay the price to sit and be still and try to figure out, okay, what can I do to get us moving in the same direction? It could look different from organization to organization, team to team, but it's possible. It takes a lot of work, and it's ugly, it's sloppy, and it's messy.
Yes. And I'll add maybe one thing too, is like, it takes time. It's
Yeah.
not just something over, like everyone talks about the All Blacks and like their culture, and like their principles, right? Everything from like sweeping the shed to play with purpose, to train to win, to sacrifice, to be a good ancestor, to like write your legacy, all those things. Like they didn't come up with those overnight. Those principles that everyone talks about, that everyone's read in the book Legacy, that like everyone describes as like the best culture in sports and organization, that took years and years and years to develop, and trial and error. And guess what? Like removing players, removing coaches, adding coaches. And I think, again, like if you're not willing to sit in the time and the messiness of it, you're probably not going to end up where you want to end up. But yeah,
So true.
I'm all over that. Okay, so sticking sort of with the theme of teams, we've actually talked about this on an individual level. We've talked a little bit about like sort of the noise that kind of encompasses us as an individual, whether that's our self-talk or like persuasion from inside and outside of ourselves and our performances. But as we look at teams, right? A lot of teams, organizations, whether you're like a national team player or whatever, they experience this sort of noise around them, especially in high performance. And so I think from the lens of a mental performance coach, or from our experiences, how do we help a team quiet that noise? And it's obviously, we're very primed. I have no clue when this episode is going to come out, but the Olympics are going on right now. And it's like, that's such a real thing with everything that's going on in the world. So Lauren, what are your thoughts on how we can start to quiet the noise around our team and focus more on our actual performance?
Well, when I think about quieting the noise, I think about like, have you guys ever been driving somewhere where it's unfamiliar and you have the music or a podcast turned up loud?
Yep.
And suddenly you're like, oh shoot, I don't know if I need to make a right or left turn. And there's nothing else happening. There's nobody in your way. There's nobody talking to you. It's just music or a podcast or something. But for whatever reason, you can't think about what turn you need to make. And so you start turning the volume down.
Yeah.
That's what I think about when I think about noise, is that sometimes it isn't, sometimes to some people, you may not even realize that that's the noise that is getting in the way. You may not even realize how some outside things or some people in your life or things that people said or social media or what you're consuming can actually cloud your thinking, to cloud your judgment, and to cloud maybe your decision making. And so when I kind of think about this topic, I like to think about it in terms of volume and what you're choosing to turn up and what you're choosing to turn down. Because while we can't always control what people are going to say, like let's take Simone Biles, for example. I mean, talk about controversy, talk about people that have everybody, all these wide ranges of opinions. Man, you have to know which ones you want to turn up and listen to, and which ones you need to turn down and ignore. And so I think that's really important to kind of audit those things in your life and knowing, what are the things that when you turn up the volume here, it's really beneficial. Maybe it's the volume of your coach. Maybe it's the volume of your significant other. Maybe it's the volume of like your teammate. And maybe you're turning down the volume of, certain family members that don't have anything good to say, or friends, or social media, or the news. And so I think that my brain just goes immediately to volume. And then second, when we're feeling really uncertain, a lot of times it kind of comes with this sense of overwhelm. And so I think one way to also, get rid of that, and not even get rid of overwhelm, but manage it a little bit, is kind of having this sense of control back, because overwhelm is often associated with a lack of control. And so in these big moments when there's a lot of opinions, a lot of noise, or there's, a lot of criticism, which often, pro athletes and elite individuals experience. One way is to really go back to those simple things of what you can control, because it may be the overwhelm of the expectations. We need to win, or I want to win gold, or all these people are counting on me. And it could be a number of things that can be noisy, but going back to those things that you can control often gives us a little bit more sense of direction in those moments when maybe we are confused on what direction to go in.
Oof, lot to take in there, Laura. Got to think back to the army when I swear that was like one of the first examples I ever learned about like attention control and focus was like, why do I turn the volume down when I back in? Anytime I back in, I'm like music off, and it's like you need your full attention, right? Like directed and focused. And I think that's like such a unique way to look at it. And then, I mean, Justin, I always think about you talking about auditing your circle. Like, I know it's just like, that's such a great way to sort of help quiet the noise, is to like be around people whose noise you want, and then not be around people's noise you don't want. So what are you thinking about with that question, Justin?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just love so many of the things that Lauren just said, and you added on as well. I also was thinking about volume and focusing through the noise. Daniel Kahneman, he's one of the authors for Thinking Fast and Slow, and he recently came out with a book called Noise. And essentially, there's the noise and there's signal. Noise is things that don't matter, and the signal is the things that do matter. And I think really one of the best ways to start establishing how to focus through the noise is to establish what is the noise, what does it sound like, and where's it coming from. And I think I can't remember where I heard this before, but it's not mine, but it really resonated with me that we're really, when it comes to decision making, when it comes to being nudged one way or another, we're going to be influenced by three groups of people: the powerful, the many, and the close. So the people who we perceive the powerful, the leaders, the coaches, the people who are seen in these high positions of leadership, these celebrities, so to speak. The many, that we're going to be swayed by the majority. We're going to be swayed by everyone who's going one way, and then finally the close. We're going to be swayed by, we're going to listen to our best friends, the people we admire, our siblings, our parents, those teammates, those coworkers we really value, who are really close to us. And so be very aware of that. Another thing as well, and I think about these elite athletes playing in front of millions of people, and there have been moments where you two have probably experienced this, where you're on the field and it is so loud that just your ears are ringing. Because it's just incredibly loud. And it's amazing to see at that very close level how athletes are able to literally focus through the noise. And you ask them, hey, How were you able to do that? And they say, you know what? I didn't even notice it. I didn't notice this person talking trash to me. I didn't notice the pressure because they were. I said, well, what were you focused on? Hey, I was focused on getting the job done, my internal cues, my external cues. And I think one way to be able to help, once again, is what is the noise? And then really focusing on the signal. Where do you need to put that flashlight of attention? Where do you need to put what matters most? How do you keep the main thing, as Stephen Covey says? But you have to establish what is that main thing. But easier said than done. Easier said than done.
Wow. Love the idea of noise and signaling. Um, this is like one of those times where it's like I could totally add on, but you guys have crushed it. And naturally, with prefacing that, I'm going to add on just one thing because why would I not? But I've actually like because it kind of ties into the North Star thing about like really knowing who we are and being like that version of you. And when I say you, I guess I am talking a little bit about team, but like there's this a sort of like I remember Arnold Palmer slightly talked about it in this way. It's like sort of like a continuum of what he said, but it's like he talks about like being you, and he's like, you know, not some idea of you, not someone you saw on TV, not someone you saw on Twitter, not somebody you saw on Instagram, not somebody telling you to be some type of you, like be you. And he says it's like be you, capable of greatness and prized only by you. And when you really think about that, like when you're on a really good team, it's like it is, you know, that team is capable of greatness and that team is prized only by the members amongst that team. And there is something so incredibly uplifting about that, about being in a place like that and being a part of something like that. And so, you know, I think that bit of advice is like be you, not the version of what people want you to be you, not what you see on Twitter, Instagram, be you. And I think like there's that real good, exciting North Star component to that. And that's exciting.
That's a great point.
Listen, we're gonna close out here with a final question about rest and recovery. And so I think in the world of high performance, there's tons of phrases and things that people say about like you can sleep when you're dead, or like rise and grind 4 a.m. to 4 a.m. Like look at me, blah blah blah. I've got my own opinions on it. I'm sure you guys do too. But the question, in the world of high performance, what is the relationship to rest and recovery? Lauren, Justin, you guys decide who wants to go first.
All right. I mean, oh no, now I'm nervous because I don't know, I don't know where I'm going with this. And so, oh, do you? Okay, good. So if I don't share it, please, please get my rebound. But when you said that, I was thinking about for me, maybe because it's so recent, a CrossFit athlete I was working with. So what's interesting now, I do remember that. I laughed when you were talking about, Brian, about the grind mindset. I don't sleep when you're dead, because that is real. That's prevalent. A lot of people subscribe to that thought. But what I do like to see now is that people are saying no, or sleep and meditation and optimizing recovery, the importance of recovery and so forth. I was working with a CrossFit athlete, and she has rest days. She programmed recovery moments, and they were miserable to her. They were absolutely miserable because when she was prioritizing going on a date with her husband, or sleep, or rest, or not going to the gym and stretching instead, or doing mobility instead, she started to get very anxious because she'd go on social media and see, wait, I'm resting and recovering, and other people are getting ahead. They're in the gym, they're running, they're biking, they're lifting, they're doing everything they can. And here I am going on a date with my spouse, or I'm going on a walk in the park or reading a book, and it just wasn't resonating. And then all she had to do was a very simple strategy. All she did is attach, when she wrote down, she loved to write it in her calendar. What she wrote down was, why? Why am I sleeping why am I getting 8 hours of sleep? Why am I going on a date with my spouse? Why am I reading this book? Why am I doing mobility? And what did you notice? Once she attached a purpose to her recovery strategy or technique or exercise, she got more out of it. And she ended up realizing that it was like a cell phone, plugging it into the wall and charging her batteries so that she can hit the gym even harder, run faster, be a better version of herself. And so that's the one story that just really resonates with me. I think I probably missed it, Lauren. but the one that you were thinking about. But it's just incredibly important, the rest and recovery. And if you're having a hard time doing it because you feel you need to go, 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 pause, create a rest and recovery, and then attach a why to why you're resting recovery. And as you attach a why to it, then you'll see the true benefits and you'll be able to do it on purpose, with purpose, as we talk about so much. Lauren, pick me up.
I loved that story. No, the immediate thing I went to, and I don't want to tell this story. I want Brian to go back to this story if you want to tell it. But I was thinking of the pit stops that we've talked about before with Formula One. So I'm not going to go into that because I think, Brian, you tell that story really, really well. But can you tell?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like there's been multiple like iterations of like why pit stops are important, and again, like it's if you're watching F1, like those pit stops are for tires and like pretty quick, but if you're watching like the Indianapolis 500, we're talking about like this incredible race over like hundreds of miles, and it's like they are going 200 miles per hour and they come in and they stop in this pit stop, and it really like it's so interesting because they stop for 10 to 12 seconds. They get like gallons of fuel and new tires and like update engine pieces and things like that. And in reality, like they are sacrificing that time in order for them to actually go longer and be faster. And I think that is the shift in mindset that needs to happen in the world of high performance, is that when you stop for a pit stop, it's actually allowing you to have longevity and to be a higher performer. And that is why like these incredible vehicles do that. And also, speaking of like incredible vehicles, like people, and this is a shout out to like CC Craft, because she always says, she's like, hardcore performance requires hardcore recovery. And she likens it to a sports car. And she was like, everyone talks about sports cars' engines and how fast they are and fast, and turning. What they don't realize is that those sports cars also have the most complicated, incredible braking systems ever. Because as fast as you go, you have to be able to stop as well. And recovery is the high performance braking system in our body. You have to be able to brake if you want to be able to go fast. That's all the car analogies I got, people.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, I got one coming at you then, because I want to take this a step further and like think about it from a neurological perspective. And when high performers, if we think about motivation and high performers, a lot of high performers, I mean, they can relate to the fact, and I'm sure anybody listening, not just high performers, but anybody that's going after a goal that really matters to you, is that when you reach that goal, have you ever had that thought of, what now? You're just like, now what? You're kind of stumped. There may be kind of like a down spiral. You're like, man, I worked so long and hard for this one goal, and now what? And so when we think about this from like chemical perspective in our brain, dopamine is the chemical that is responsible for getting us to move towards getting something that we currently don't have. And if we don't stop and take a break in our brain, actually the same burnout can happen the same way. And so if you think about dopamine as the accelerator, serotonin, prolactin, oxytocin, those are the brake system. And so that's why it's really important to not only have, this, be driven and all of that. Like, yes, like we totally believe that goes hand in hand with high performance. But the part that really makes high performers and that allows them to perform longer and with quality is also using this other part of the brain. And the way that we do that is through gratitude, is through noticing our tiny wins. It's through being really aligned with our purpose and the things that we currently have. And so it's the difference between wanting to get something we don't have, and so really moving towards something, and they call it kind of this idea of like exteroception, so things outside of us, and then shifting and having a little bit of balance between serotonin, which is more of our interoception. And so those are things that are like that we currently have, and being in the present moment. And so a lot of times, when we're talking about meditation and all of these things, those are really great ways to shift between those two systems. And when we do that, it's a very similar idea of that pit stop, is we are kind of pit stopping our brain to be able to perform longer and perform in a more high quality way.
Damn, we are getting scientific on the final episode of the Mindset Show. Lauren coming in hot with the knowledge. Oof. I mean, I'm so happy that this is a conversation that's happening in our world now. Because, Justin, Lauren, I know we've been doing this for a little bit of time, and it feels like that's a shift, and it's exciting to see that it's happening. Because it goes the exact same way for us as mental performance coaches. I think we can be stuck in this sort of grind as well. And I think we realize the power of all of those things. And speaking of the power of gratitude, we will end this show as we always do, making sure we are hunting the good stuff. Justin, please tell me one good thing going on in your life.
It's a simple one, but a really cool one. So Melissa and I, my wife, we celebrated 17 years of marriage yesterday. So
Let's go, man.
That was a fun one.
Congratulations.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That is awesome. Lauren, what do you got?
I think one of the things, and I know I come back to this a lot, but I think it just is very central in my life, is my family. And Jake just left for another golf tournament, or for 2 weeks for golf, for the tour. And we just had such a nice dinner night, and just being with each other and being present with each other. So I was really thankful for that.
Love it. Lots of family. I'll follow suit. I'm actually pretty excited, gratitude-wise, for tomorrow. So it is family day at the ballpark, and it is going to be the first game that Meg and my daughter Marlo are going to come to, and they're going to run around the field. Just Marlo's bedtime is usually around game time, so we don't mess with routines in this family. We are hot to trot on routines in the mental performance household of the Miles is. But Mars is going to come to the game. It's a 1:00 game tomorrow, and then they're doing a bunch of stuff for the kids, so she'll run around on the field, and it's fun because it's that's my where I live. I live at that ballpark, and it's going to be so fun to get her out in the field, have a blast, and do all those things. So very excited about that. And very excited that we finished up this final episode here. We can't wait to continue to explore what this world of mindset and performance has. And just honestly, I want to thank Lauren and Justin for being incredible people, friends, and I can't wait to see where this journey goes.
Oh man, right back at you, Brian. And how ironic, you started us off hosting and you ended. So I feel like the kind of a perfect way to end our season 1 of the Mindset.
Good point. Good memory.
Very good memory, considering way back when. So until the next season comes out, thank you everybody, and have a great day, guys.